Hello friends, this is Ganesh and video number 11 on enhancement. In this session, I'm going to explain a few properties of BADI, and that is in the definition level. Again, we have to use a custom BADI definition to understand how the properties are working. So once you understand the design of definition, then implementation is very simple. So you should aware while implementing if this particular property is set from a SAP standard BADI definition, then our implementation should work in this way only, and you can make use of other options like callback classes, example implementation. So those things also, it's quite comfortable while implementing your any of your BADI with the help of a standard BADI definition. Okay, so let's get into the slides, then I'll go to the system and explain the same as well. So the first property is default implementation. The name itself we assign or we assume, okay, whatever implementation we have three implementation. If we select this default implementation, that is going to execute. Actually, it's working in a different way. Default implementation work at the last, meaning whenever there is a BADI definition and it has its own implementation, the system is going to check if the BADI has any implementation, any custom implementation is available or not. If no active implementation, very specific, if there are implementation but that is not active, okay. So if there is no active implementation in the particular BADI definition, then it will start searching if there is any default implementation class or method technically. If that is available, then only it will execute or it will touch the particular default implementation, otherwise no. Okay, it's not like always is go and touch the default implementation. No, it will find any active implementation, yes or no. If it is no, then only default implementation will trigger. So default implementation may be any one of your implementation as well. I have three implementation. I'm going to set implementation one, the first implementation, default implementation. Then the system will check whether any active implementation rather than this first one, and it will just check whether 2 and 3 or any active implementation available. If yes, it just ignore this. Okay, it won't trigger at all. If there is no active implementation at all in this BADI, then only it will go and execute your default implementation. Okay, so that is the idea. If there is no active implementation at all in your BADI, then your default implementation will trigger. Another point is this scenario would be useful for SAP, that product level. So they might have their own implementation, standard implementation for a few of the BADIs. If none, there is no active implementation for this particular BADI, execute the standard implementation as well. So they might have used this option for their own use. Okay, so that is the idea of default implementation. The next one is fallback class method. Same like the previous slide, it will go and start fallback class method. If you may remember, it mentioned if there is no active implementation, then this class will trigger, kind of, right? So now again, go to the previous slide. The same thing, you're going to just check if there is any active implementation. Yes, just execute only that and forget about either there is a fallback or not. And if there is no active implementation, then try to find out any default implementation. Okay, if yes, trigger it. Even if there is no default implementation, then go and check is there is any fallback class methods are available. If yes, trigger it, otherwise just leave it. So there is a hierarchy of execution. Okay, so if it is active, if it is no active, then go to default implementation. If it is no active and no default implementation, then go and find out if there is any fallback class methods are available. Okay, if yes, trigger it. And the common way or common thing to be maintained, because this is also like every implementation may have a different class, and you have one more additional class over here. Okay, so every class has the same interface, whatever interface you maintained, custom interface, right? Every BADI implementation has a custom interface. So whatever you maintain, that needs to be implemented in all the classes. Wherever you are using for the implementation purpose, you have to maintain the same interface method. Okay, That is very important. The idea is very simple. The methods, the count, the number of methods should be same in all the classes, because everything depends on one BADI definition. So it should not like this class implementation class 3 methods, this is class 4, normally not, right? So that is the reason you have to maintain the same interface in all the classes. Next one is implementation examples. It's very simple. As a definition, as a designer, you just think in that perspective. If you're designing a BADI, you might have an idea. So what needs to be implemented in this particular class, particular method. So you can give some sample code for the developer who's going to implement their own concept. Okay. So that's an idea of the implementation examples. While defining a BADI, you are able to create a method and a class, like you can have a different sample codes, and here more than one example, my implementation example also possible, you're able to make it. So class and methods with default code for just for the reference. It's not like this implementation example is going to be triggered. No, this is only for the reference level, and it can be a reference while implementation. And there are options if you want to copy this to a copy to your implementation. Then there are three options. You can create an empty class, meaning you are ignoring completely, and copy class, you just copy the code. And inherit class, you can make use of that class as a super class and inherit the concept to your implementation part. There is a check. If you are going to inherit, make sure your example class has not checked the final check option checkbox in the class definition I'm talking about. Okay, if it is checked with the final, you are not able to inherit, you just do only the copy class option. Okay, so this is about implementation examples in the BADI definition. And yeah, here also we are going to use another class apart from your implementing class. So try to maintain the interface in your class also. But the best part is, instead of creating a fallback class or implementation class in SE24 and try to add it in your BADI definition, instead of, you can do in a reverse way. Normally how you do the data element domain creation, right? So give a name, just give double click or just continue. It will ask, this object is not available, do you want to create? If you say yes, that will take care of all the interface include part as well. Okay, so always better you do that one. Additional another point would be, your fallback class can act as a implementation example also. Whenever you create a callback class, it will ask a question, do you want to consider or do you want to create the same class as the implementation examples? So you can say yes or no, depends on your need, you can do it. Okay, so that is another additional point. Anything else? No, it's done. Okay, let's do everything in the system with the help of custom BADI definition. This is my system, and let me go to C18, and this is the enhancement spot which we are using for all the previous videos, screen, menu enhancement and everything. So let me create a new one for this properties. See, BADI properties. So creating a new BADI definition. Properties. Yep. So here I'm going to use the default implementation. So let me have the same interface which we are using. It has two methods, M1 and M2. Let me activate my enhancement spot first. Okay, then do the implementation part, create BADI implementation. As you know, you have two layers of implementation creation. One is enhancement implementation, other one is BADI implementation. So you can have like 1:n. So here I just go with the existing one. So just select which existing enhancement implementation is needed, and then create a BADI implementation. So here Z BADI1, okay, BADI1, and then class ZCL underscore BADI1. Excuse me, continue and save it. So I have to repeat the same because this required 2 or 3 implementation to show the difference between the default implementation property. So let me have the few things to be ready. So implement the classes here. So considering this is my default implementation, okay. So default implementation M1. So I'm going to use only one method, so it doesn't make any big difference if you have both methods to be implemented. Anyway, I'm going to implement, but I don't have any write statement over there. So M2 is going to be empty implementation, like just empty methods. Yes, no code over there. Okay, so considering this is BADI 1 is my first implement, is going to my default implementation. Okay, so go back, let me create the another one, as this is marked as a multiple use, so I can have more than one implementation. This is 2 and this is 2 and this is going to be 2. Okay, continue, save it and do the same. Go to the class and implement with some write statement. Okay, go to implementation class M1, yes, write M1 method 1 from implementation 2. Back to it and keep the M2 as an empty method. And back to it. Go back. Okay. Then I need one more implementation. You can, okay, you can create from there itself. Okay, let me create it here. Create BADI, same implementation, enhancement implementation, and this is going to be third BADI. Okay, back to it, save it. Okay, almost done. Go here, M1, yes, right, M1 from BADI 3. Third implementation. Okay, so now I'm going to mark my first implementation as default one. Okay, now go back and go to my first implementation. I'm going to select the option called default implementation. So this is from implementation level, not from the definition level. So I'm going to use this one. Okay, done. Let activate, then you will find a difference here. One second here. So here it shows implementation will be called. Now I enable the default implementation and activating it. You'll get a different message over there. It shows this will call. So a non-default implementation will be called instead. Okay. So meaning if you go to 3 and this is also BADI 2 second implementation, it shows is active. Okay, still it's 1. Yeah, it's active. This will be called, and BADI 3 also active. This implementation will be called. Okay, so let's see how it's trigger when from the program perspective if the BADI is getting called. And what is the program? Okay, I'm not sure. Release GG BADI call. Okay, so let's have the declaration of the object. Type ref to the BADI name. So what is the definition of the BADI? Just go back. BADI properties. It has 3 implementation, and out of that, 1 is default, remaining 2 are active BADI implementation. So get BADI object BADI and then call BADI object BADI. I'm going to call only one method M1. That's it. Act toward it and execute your program. So here it shows very clearly M1 from implementation 2, M1 from BADI 3. So it's called from BAD implementation 2 and 3, not the first one, because first one is considered or considered as a default implementation. If there is no active BADI implementation, then only it will call the default implementation part. So now what I'm going to do is let me go to my implementation and take out the means I'm going to inactive my second and third implementation, BADI implementation. Then automatically it will trigger my first one, the default one. So go to BADI 2. If you remove this default implementation right now, it will call all the 3. Okay. So it doesn't have any difference. All 3 are same level of implementations. And I'm going to take out this check mark from BADI 2 and BADI 3. Then I'm going to call my program. Let's see how it triggers. Take out this, save it, and make sure BADI 1 is still the default implementation. Yep, let me act toward it. So activate all the implementations. Okay, and if you go to BADI 2, it's mentioned very clearly the implementation will not be called. This is in BADI 1 still. It's just processing. Yeah, so it will not be called. We are in BADI 2. Okay, now go to my program and execute it. So default implementation M1. So if there is no active implementation, then only your default implementation will call. Okay, so this is about default implementation. And the next one is callback class. So let me go to definition part again. And here, if you go to the BADI definition, and here you have an option called call fallback if no implementation executed. So meaning there is no active, no default implementation, then your callback will call. If there is, it's same. If there is no default, then automatically, if there is no active, then it will call your callback class as well, class methods. Okay. So you can create a class in SE24, but as I mentioned, the interface to be maintained both the classes here and there. So instead of that, I'm going to use call fallback CGI fallback FB class. Okay, FB class. Okay, and save it. So it says class does not exist. Do you want to create the object? Yes, I want to create. Just give local object. It will take care of the interface as well. So now it will ask create a fallback class as implementation example class as well. So I'm going to say no because I'm going to create implementation example differently. Okay, but you can try this option also. I'm just giving no. And do you want saved? Do you want to save the changes? Yes, save it. Then it will automatically go there. It automatically include whatever the interface is relevant for the BADI definition, and it has a methods over here. Now you can have a like you can implement it basically. So right, I'm saying fallback class method M1. Okay, so I just go with only one method definitions here. That's it. And let me go M2 as a default one, like empty one. Sorry, not a default, empty one. Okay, I activated it. Okay, just come back. That's it, nothing much. Let me activate my enhancements bot. So if there is no active at all, then your fallback class method will trigger or will call. So for that, go to implementation, BADI implementation. Make sure you don't have any active implementations. So even though the default is selected, I'm going to take out the implementation active checkbox from here. So it consider there are 3 implementation, all the 3 are not active. So take out and activate it. Now if you go and call your program, considering it has a BADI definition and it will call the implementation part. So there is no active for this BADI. So it will automatically check if there is any fallback class. If yes, then it will call the method. Okay, let's execute. So it shows very clearly fallback class method called M1. Okay, so there are some hierarchies to be triggered: active, default, and then fallback. Okay, and go to definition. So here, yeah, it's fallback is done, and implementation example. So if you want to create the same thing, you can give S, it will automatically create here. Otherwise, you have an option here, right click your BADI definition. Okay, right click your BADI definition. Then you have an option called create implement example class. Just click. And the same thing, you can have a class in SE24 and do it, or give a name over here and you can do it. CGI implementation examples. Implementation examples. So it'll ask class does not ask, do you want to do it? Yes, I want to do it. And local object, okay. And then do you want to save the changes in your BADI definition? Yes. Nothing much automatically comes here. And here I'm going to say example codes. Example codes. Okay, example codes from, this is from definition. This is not implementation, right? So SAP has to give if it is a standard one. So definition. You might have seen this as well, like example methods. It has some code is given from SAP itself. You can make use of it if it is at least okay for your need. Activate it. Okay, one second. Let me M2. Yeah, good enough. Activate. Okay, done. Let's come here. And now it will display here till still I'm in SAP BADI definition. Okay, not implementation, definition. This has to be done in definition level, fallback class and example classes. You can have a number of classes, not only one. If you want, you can have more than one as well. Example 2, example 2, yes, local object, yes, done. Okay, so this is also example code 2. It depends on the need, you can make it. Just play around with the custom BADI so you understand very much about the design. So implementation is very simple. Excuse me. Then go to M2, make sure yes it's active. Okay, I'm done. So now it shows 2 example classes. Now if you go to do a create implementation of the BADI, okay, enhancement implementation, I'm going to use the existing one. Probably it might be 4, and it's 4. Continue. Now this pop-up comes because we have enabled or added the code or the class and methods in the implementation classes. So you have 2 classes, right? So you have an option, either one you can select. So if you this one or this one, I'm going to the second one, and you have an option empty class, like I'm ignoring it. You have an option, right? It's not compulsory you have to use the reference code. You can ignore it as an empty class, and you can say copy sample class, and you can say inherit from sample class. Currently I can't use inherit because my classes are by default final. I didn't take out the checkbox, tick mark in the checkbox, so I'm not able to use the inherit option. I can say copy sample class, local object. Just consider it has some line of codes, currently nothing, just on only one comment statement. I don't want to add any logic because our intention is to understand how it works. So it's up to your need. You can add whatever is required for you. Now, if you go to implementation class M1, you're able to see example code. It's 2, second class, so I mentioned 2. Okay. So this is a way you can able to make use of the implementation example code which is given by SAP. Okay. So hope this might be useful for you about the properties. Just play around, and if you have any doubt, any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next video. Bye.